Okay. Anyway, we've had one meeting already, but it was a bad time for you guys. I see there are a bunch of Australians here now. Are you all from Australia? And we actually have some youth. That's good. I have to be on my best behavior. It might work. It's only noon here.
Bunch of bogans in here.
This is the same course as the full course, so all the videos are down here. Everything that's in the full course is here. But what we do is up top here, I'll add all the stuff that is specific for the coaching course. So there's this form that you could fill in. And the idea of this form is just for us at Mayako to have more information about you. So we know who you are, where you race, what your goals are. Because when we know that, then we can tailor the course more for your needs personally. So if you're a mentor and you aren't really serious about your own racing, but you mainly want to learn about setting up the car and helping the local youngsters do better, then we can help you with that. If you are a young up and coming racer and you're already one of the fastest guys locally and you would like to become the next Davide Ongaro, we need to know that, because then we can help you achieve those goals. If you are someone who really enjoys racing, only really on a local scene, you just want to do better, then we can help you do that too. So the value you get from this course, it's largely dictated by how much you put in. So the more you are active, the more support and help and benefit you will get from this. So the first step is to fill in this form, answer the questions, and then over the next weeks, we are going to go through all of the responses and begin to make a more personal plan for people for what they could do. Then here, I'll always announce the date and time of the next meeting. This time we are doing meeting 1 and 2 for you guys, because as I said, we already had one meeting for the EU and USA time. And then later today, in about 8 hours or so, I'll have a second meeting covering the same things we'll talk about here. Then here in this section, this is where I'll be posting all the meeting video archives. So this meeting will be recorded and posted here. And now I already have the archive of the first meeting and also the topics that we discussed. So let's just quickly go through this. And if you have any questions, just interrupt me at any time. So the archive is here on the course, but also on YouTube. So there's a link to the YouTube video. And I kind of already explained the goals here. It's to maximize your racing success and enjoyment. And also for us, the benefit is also that we build a global network of Mayako racers, consisting of young racers who want to improve and also knowledgeable racers who are able to help those young racers locally. The way we're going to do this is we'll talk about better ways and better methods of practicing so you can make the most out of your time at the track. Most people, they go to the track and they just drive around. And I think there are much better ways of learning and improving, and also more fun ways to do it. Another thing we will do is we are going to not force you. I shouldn't say force you, because you want to improve, right? We are going to help you improve by getting more track time. And one way of doing that is the VRC video game. So how many of you have that or have tried it?
I've tried it at Tim Gelotti's place once.
Okay. I think you have to pay something for it, right? Before there was that one-time payment you could make. It wasn't a lot, but now they have a payment, I think.
Yeah, you only get so many courses in cars now. Otherwise, you got to pay for it.
Okay.
But I did some 1/12 road with my young fella the other day, and it seemed okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the plan is that we'll all race the same track and same car, same settings, because in VRC you can adjust the settings just like you can in real life, but they don't really make sense. So you might find a glitch where you adjust something to an extreme and the car is faster. So we don't really want to worry about the settings of the car. We'll find a setting that feels realistic. So when you drive with your own radio, it feels like you are driving a real RC car. So everyone runs the same track, same car, same settings. And then we'll decide, okay, now we're going to do this for the next month or the next 2 months. And we'll have our own competition or tournament. And I think we'll separate, we can have everyone together, but also separate youth from the mentors. And we are going to have prizes for various different things like best lap, best complete run, best average, or sort of best consistency, the most laps in the time that we put aside for this. So this is going to be something that I hope encourages you to pick up the radio more often and turn more laps, because we aren't all able to go to the track every day or many times a week. Maybe we can only go to the track on the weekend, but something we can do is almost every day pick up the radio and spin a few laps on VRC. And I've tested this for myself, and I truly believe that it helps, because it's the same idea. You are building up your muscle memory and your ability to concentrate. And if you are like me and you put pressure on yourself, for example, oh, I have to beat this lap time, or I have to beat this run time before I stop, it can get frustrating, I tell you. So it's surprisingly realistic. The off-road side, not so much. At least I haven't managed to figure out how to make the off-road side work, but 12 scale on-road modified is a really good way to practice. So I unfortunately didn't have time, or I didn't set the time aside to finish the setup and show you what we are going to do, but I will for the second meeting, and then I'll share it also here, so everyone can start running the same track, same car, same settings, and we'll start doing that. Also, there's the option of racing online together, so we can organize some times when we'll meet online in VRC and race together. So how does that sound? Does that sound like something that would be beneficial and fun?
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's good. My young fella, he's only 9. He jumps on and does some laps. Just for all the other boys, you can actually make your own adapter. I think I made mine for about $12. I'll try to find the code that you got to put into the thing to make it run, and I'll post that up there in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Do we need like a computer or laptop that's like a gaming sort of laptop, or can it run on any sort of laptop or computer?
Anything basic. It doesn't need much.
Yeah.
It's pretty low end.
Yeah,
It's just as long as you have good enough Wi-Fi sort of thing.
Yeah. And if you've got Fly Sky radio, you don't need an adapter.
Yeah, FlySky plugs straight in with a USB-C.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. There are also some settings that you can adjust to make the game run smoother. So I'll also mention them in the instructions.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, well, this we're going to do now today. So we're going to talk about the Mayako build and base setup and then setup homework. We'll talk about this, but I think it's too soon really to do this. I think first we have to go to the track and just figure out the very basics. We are going to have some guest speakers on at some point in these meetings to talk about different aspects of racing, like mental strength and focus and practice and driving and racing, because I'm not a world champion driver, am I? So why would you listen to me? Let's get some world champions on to talk about driving and racing and how they approach it. And also we'll talk about other aspects of RC racing career, so sponsorship and media and how to deal with that side of things. And then I recommend that you check this information that I posted here, but because I linked some of the videos that I think that you should watch. So there are so many videos here. You don't need to watch all of them, but at least watch these. They are focused on driving, jumping, and practicing, and they're really good. So check them out. And then in the first meeting, we talked about how important it is just to build your car correctly. And this is something that I always go back to when I help someone. It's so common. Even now when I helped Ryan Cavalieri at DNC, it was funny because he's a 4-time world champion, right? You'd think that everything's under control, but it really wasn't. And the first days were really spent just fixing little issues on the car and adjusting the setup to what it's actually supposed to be. So it wasn't really even doing some kind of heavy hitting setup magic. It was just figuring out the basics. So making sure that all the suspension arms and hubs and everything move freely, making sure that the shock caps move free, that all the screws are the right length and size and tighten the correct amount, and just nothing is binding. And this is kind of the boring stuff, but it really matters on our cars. The tiny things that most people overlook, when you add them all together, that's what makes the difference. And I think this is more the responsibility of the parent. At least if I look at the age of our drivers here in this meeting, it's the parent's responsibility at this point to make sure that the car is good. Every time that you hit the track, the car is prepared well, because then your son will be able to focus on his driving and learn and improve and make the most of the time at the track. If the car's falling apart, if cambers are this way and that way, if the shock oil is way too thick or way too thin, then the benefit of driving, yes, you can learn, but it's not, the progress won't be that fast. So this is a team effort. Driver needs to be focused when you're driving, but mechanic needs to be focused in the pits. And this is really a big deal. And I think that when you have a group of people, many father and son teams, the son that becomes the fastest in that area is the one who has the best mechanic. It's almost always that way. Sometimes there's a super talent, but most of the time it is the son who is driving a car that is built and prepared well. So I cannot overemphasize how important this is. Once you have a car that is built well, maintained well, I think that the first goal should be to learn to drive consistent 5-minute runs. So don't just drive around the track. Don't go for the best lap. Try to time 5-minute runs and time each lap and try to make it a consistent 5 minutes where the lap times are close together. It doesn't even matter what the lap time is, as long as all the laps are very similar. That's the number one goal. That's where all the greats have started. And at this point, you don't even really need to worry about the car too much. Just keep it the same. Just maintain it. Keep decent tires on the car. Clean the car. But you don't have to be changing setup. It doesn't matter at this point, because now we are establishing a base. We are learning the track. We are learning to drive. We are learning to concentrate and do consistent laps for 5 minutes. So the setup really doesn't matter. And with Mayako, it's easy because you can literally put the base setup on and it's going to be good. As long as you tune the diff oils to the traction level and the shock oils to the temperature. So you can run that base setup, the car is going to be good, and then you focus on getting 5 minute clean, consistent runs in. So yeah, watch those videos I linked above. There I explain how you should drive and why you should be smooth and maintain control. Actually, Darren is here. Yeah, I watched Darren at Philippine Masters, and he's a master of this. Build your speed, right? Everything looks under control, and then throughout the qualifier, try going a bit faster and a bit faster. That's the way, really. That is the way.
That's actually really good observation, because I quite often at the end of the first lap, or even first couple of laps, I'm down in 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. But then slowly as the race goes on, I usually come through the field to the front or wherever. Yeah.
This part about how the car works, we're going to skip it now. You can rewatch it in the first video if you want. This is relevant when you want to begin to adjust the car. And I think it's relevant because right now, most people in RC racing, they make changes based on memory and experience. Oh, I've done this before and this happened, but they don't understand it. And if you understand it, it will be so much easier to make the correct choice at the track, at the race. So these very basic things, I recommend that you study this a bit, and we can talk about it. You can ask questions, you can clarify things, because the basic idea is not that complicated, right? Every single person on this call is able to understand this, I'm sure. So one of my goals is to make sure that everyone in the course understands the difference between initial and overall grip and which settings affect this. And the only thing I'll say is that this is what we are adjusting on the car, because if you've driven, sometimes you feel that the car is very calm and easy and stable, and it doesn't want to spin out in a corner or flip over in a corner, for example. When a car is easy like that and doesn't do anything surprising, we say that the car has less initial grip and more overall grip. Then when the car drives around the track in a way where it wants to flip over in a corner, maybe if you catch a bump, it wants to crash, or if you are driving around a corner, the rear might want to slide out suddenly and you spin. A car like that, we say it has a lot of initial grip and low overall grip. So I noticed a few years ago that the problem was that people were just talking about grip. Oh, my car has no grip. Then someone else would drive the same car and they would feel that, oh, this car has a lot of grip. And it didn't make any sense. And the reason is this. So there are different types of grip. Initial grip, you have grip, but you can suddenly lose it. Overall grip is more constant. So watch the videos And when you read about setup, always think about this initial versus overall grip. And over this year, we are going to always come back to this topic. Okay. Then last time we talked about how to practice also. And yeah, we might as well repeat this because this is what I want you to do now. When you, I guess all of you can go to the track now. We can't. We still have, I can even see snow out there. You don't have that problem, right?
2 or 3 weeks left. Everybody opens up beginning of April.
Okay. So
PNB would be the first race for the year, and then
okay.
local.
Okay.
I mean, Australia is good at the moment. We've probably got 2 months left before the rain hits and we're shut out of tracks.
Okay. So
Maybe 3 months.
this is what I hope that all of you do now. And I don't know how you have been practicing up to this point, but I don't think you've been doing this. And I am quite sure that if you start doing this now, you are going to notice a steady and surprisingly fast improvement in your driving and racing. And the way to do it is you go to the track. First, you have to run, if it's nitro, maybe 2 or 3 tanks. Just you can do it just all in one go. Or if you're running e-buggy, then 2 or 3 battery packs. And the idea is that you are trying to find your consistent 5-minute pace. So how can you drive around the track so you don't make mistakes for 5 minutes, or you don't crash for 5 minutes, or bigger mistakes for 5 minutes, and your lap times are quite consistent? That's what you need to find. And you need to be able to do it twice in a row, at least. Yeah? The reason for this is that if you don't find this base and you just keep driving, you'll notice that even with no changes at all, you just keep getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And if that's the case, you are not going to be able to learn much about different tires or changing the setup on the car because you yourself are improving so much. So you have to, and also the other side is if you can't do 5 minutes consistently, you don't have a good enough feel for the car to be able to notice a difference. So the first step, and this, it doesn't matter, it's different for all people. You might be going to the track for the next month and not really adjusting the car because you are still trying to figure out how to do 5 minutes without crashing. And that's fine. That's where you are on your journey in racing. So take this seriously, but not seriously in a bad way. Seriously in the way that you are committed and you want to improve, but not seriously in a negative way where you get frustrated if you can't do it, right? So step 1, learn to do 5-minute consistent runs. Step 2, when you have learned this, go to the track, you do 2 or 3 runs. Now you know, okay, this is my pace. These are my lap times. This is my 5-minute time. Then in one practice day, I think even doing 10 5-minute runs is a lot because you'll notice that you can't even concentrate after that. Maybe for the kids, 10 is too much. It could literally be 3 runs like that or 5. I don't know. Everyone's different. But there comes a point where you stop concentrating, you stop focusing, and you can't do 5-minute runs anymore. So this is something that the parents, the mechanics can maybe also observe. And if that's the case, there are other things you can do at the track, which are also fun. For example, you can try to go for the best lap. Your literal focus is to try and drive the fastest you can around the track. And it's fine if you crash. This is where your dad can get some exercise, or usually much needed exercise, right? So you have a fuel tank where the whole point is to just try and go as fast as possible, because there you also learn how to control the car on the limit, on the edge, what happens. So it's a good way to practice also. Another good way is if you are with someone else at the track, cut the track so you can race together. Someone crashes, you wait for them. And you just try to race really close to each other and pass each other. And this is usually the most fun that you can have driving an RC car or racing a car around the track. It's not real racing, it's practice, but you're racing with a friend. And for me, at least, some of my best memories is days at the track with a number of friends racing like this. So I strongly recommend that you do this. Or if you're running nitro, maybe not if you can't concentrate for 5 minutes, this is not a good idea, but on days where you feel superhuman, do a longer run with fuel stops. These things that I listed here, surprisingly few people do this. At least not sort of thoughtfully, that, okay, they decide that now I'm going to go for best lap, or now let's race for the next 2 tanks together, or let's do a 45-minute run. You'd be surprised. People don't do it. Okay. Homework. We'll talk about that last. Now,
Hey, JQ,
yeah.
just quickly, just on that last little bit, coming from like a motocross background, we used to do something very, very similar, where you'd go out and do a 1-lap sprint, and we'd time that with a few people, and then after that we'd go and do, say, a 10-minute moto with a staggered start. And with the staggered start, it'd be about trying to keep someone behind you or try to catch someone in front of you, so people of different skill levels can have a bit of a battle. So it works really, really well, and yeah, it makes you pick up your speed when people start getting in behind you. So yeah, I recommend that highly.
Yes, I know in motocross they have many ways to practice, which are really helpful for us also. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some things on our website. So if you go on the top menu under community, there's a wiki. So you click that. And then this is the central hub for all Mayako car information, basically. So Discord feedback, interactive setup sheet. This is a really good page. We are in the process of updating it. Have you all seen this page before or not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a bit of a
Good. So you are somewhat familiar with it. Here you can check different settings, and there's an explanation for what the setting does. And this is a work in progress. So what I want to do is improve all of these pages and really have a very simple guide for you to follow. Then we have this section, which is new. So the cars are here, the nitro, electric, and the truck, which is coming. By the way, let's talk about that soon also. And then we have kit build advice. So this is new. This is what we are working on at the moment. We will have pages for each bag of the kit. There's a build video by Pekko, build video by Ronefalk, some pictures, there's build advice, there's any known issues listed, there's option parts that we use related to this bag. These are the shocks, so a shock oil guide, shock oil conversion, a basic setup advice, the part numbers, relevant parts, and then if Invisible Speed has a relevant video for this, we link it below. So we want to gather all the relevant information in one place for people. And once this is done for all the bags, what I'll do is I'll build a car, and for each bag, just in 1 minute, summarize the most important points, because these build videos are long, the text, you have to read it, you know, attention spans and all that. 1 minute video quickly just highlighting the most important things. So we are really working hard to make it extremely difficult for you to build the car wrong or not understand something or not know something. So we want everyone to be able to build the car correctly and put the correct setup on and make the most out of their racing.
Are those videos, do they also include stuff like pro tips or like stuff that the pros do to the stocks or the arms or whatever that help improve the car be free without shocks on and all that sort of stuff?
Pekko, you're here?
Yeah,
Does it include that?
there should be. If I remember correctly, there is like I explain how I do the arms and everything, so it should be like that.
Everything
Okay,
Pekko
cool.
does is there.
Yeah, everything I do wrong.
Yeah, also that. I haven't watched this, so give some feedback when you watch.
So will these also be on the, I don't know if it's if it will happen, like a Mayako YouTube or something eventually, maybe?
Yeah, so I mean, these are already there, but they
Okay, cool.
are unlisted. But we will also start releasing things on YouTube itself and have a playlist there, and then in the description link back to this. I think it's good
Cool.
when you have even the same information in as many places as possible. But I just want to finish this first and then start launching everything.
So sorry,
The one
Joseph,
thing-
are these videos and that on the wiki right now, or they're still
Yeah.
to come? Sorry,
No,
they're right now.
The first bags are, but today I will finish and add them all. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but then we had a wrenching session that went until 3 a.m. and I was doing some CAD work, which I'll show next.
Okay.
One thing I will say for everyone, if you're looking at the Mayako wiki on your phone, sometimes it looks different to this. So you might not see like the option bar up the side or something.
Yeah, so if you're on your phone, there's a ball, maybe bottom left corner, there's a circle with lines. You click that, you get the menu. I think that's how it was. But also this wiki is sort of open source in a sense. It's also user generated. So whenever you have any comments or thoughts or ideas, just write them in the Discord, because we can add stuff, modify stuff, remove stuff. You can even be involved in maintaining this. So the options are endless.
Hey, JQ, with that wiki, I stumbled across this the other day. It actually looked wicked. But with the interactive setup sheet, is there an opportunity to incorporate remember the setup matrix as part of the invisible speed?
Yeah.
Incorporate something like that in there about the solve issues. So when you're looking for how to solve a problem, if that could be on the interactive setup sheet area as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have to think, how should it be in there? Maybe, yeah. So for example, if you click on shock locations, there's part of the explanation is that part of the setup matrix where it says, in this situation, you would do this. In that situation,
even in a
you would
short term,
yeah.
Even in a short term fix, if it could just be added under the interactive setup sheet, maybe as that standalone Excel spreadsheet as it is, just so you can access it off your phone when you're out at the track.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it gives you some really good tips. So
Yeah. Yeah, I made a note of that to remember. Okay, then we have some new setup sheets also. they'll be here on the setup page, but right now they are only here. So we have a new blank sheet, new base setup, and my DNC setup is here, which is a really good for loose bumpy tracks. So the wiki, a really good place. Now, before I show you some new parts and CAD designs, or maybe I should do that now. Let's do that now.
Joseph, will you be showing us the Kevin table, or have you not comprised that yet?
No, so yeah, that was from yesterday. We're going to talk about that. We can talk about that, definitely. We have a friend.
Have you officially decided to rename all the shims in the car Kevins?
I've been thinking about this, and I barely got any sleep last night. But I decided that I think Kevin, being such a unique character from America, one of our members, we are going to name the measurement Kevin. I think that would be the most fitting thing. That's a very unique thing in the car. So let me share this. I'll explain what this is all about when I show you.
Add 3 Kevins to the rear arm hub spacing.
Yeah. Were you there for the?
Yeah, I was there. It was like around our
funny.
lunchtime at work today, and I had to mute myself and walk out because I was pissing myself laughing.
Yeah, it was funny. Okay. So I made these. Do you see the SolidWorks CAD thing? I hope.
Yep.
Always have to check because I made that mistake where something didn't show and I had to redo everything. Very annoying. So first of all, this may be relevant for you in Australia, actually, because you have some pretty hot weather also. We had a problem where throttle servos were dying, and it was from heat. And when we figured that out, then we came up with this solution. So now we've added carbon shims under the throttle servo holder, and carbon helps to insulate from heat. So the engine gets hot, your nitro engine gets hot, then it heats up the chassis, and then it transfers into this throttle, aluminium throttle servo holder. But when we add the shims, it helps to stop that heat transfer a bit. Also, the part is machined out so that air can circulate between the holder and the chassis. And this actually helps to keep the servo cooler. Since adopting this and also at the same time drilling holes in the plastic servo mount, we haven't been breaking servos. Now this is going to be an extremely good test because we are heading in a month's time or so to the Philippine Masters, and it's super hot there. The track is really hard. The surface is hard, so the servos are stressed a lot. And that's a race where a number of Mayako drivers broke servos. So now I want to make sure when we are there that all the Mayako drivers have this on their car, and all the Mayako drivers have holes in the plastic and cut the tab on the outside. And we make sure the linkage and brakes are set correctly, and then we see if we have people break servos. Because if this works, we won't. But if it doesn't work, there'll be many Mayako drivers with broken servos because there are 25 Mayako or 27 Mayakos there, I believe. So
is it going to become a thing where from the factory the plastic will maybe have holes in it for that part of the throttle servo, or it will just stay how it is and you just got to customize it yourself?
It will stay how it is because we can't modify the mold. But this is exactly the kind of information that we'll be adding to the wiki and also to the relevant bag. In that section, the build section I showed. So in the bag with these parts, then we would talk about this or link to the section where we explain the modification.
Yeah, because I guess it would only really affect like us in Australia and going to hot races. Like you guys in Europe wouldn't really face hot conditions where you'd have to have the holes pre-drilled in the plastic or anything.
Yeah,
A
it's.
whole lot,
I
would
mean,
you?
it's only a couple of races a year, and some places like Spain, you could have that. But not really. It's not really a problem we've had in Europe. So it's mainly actually in Asia. So Southeast Asia. It's so hot there. So yeah, that's one thing. Then
Did you mention? Oh, sorry. Did you mention cutting the tab off the servo mount as well? Did I hear you
yes,
say it?
I'll show you.
While he's finding that, one tip I found out the very, very hard way last year was just plug your battery straight into your receiver, because I had 2 switches fail, and even the extension cable running on that little tab, I had that fail as well. So from now on, any practice events, I'll run the extension and just something easy. But state titles and big events and all that stuff, I will 100% be plugging straight in a receiver.
I don't think the battery reaches, does it, Tim? The cord?
Depends on the
on your
battery. Some
battery.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I didn't have the part here, but I can show you in CAD.
I would say whenever you're plugging your battery into something like the male to female, always use the connector locks, the plastic connector locks, so you can get that basically snap over the combined connection and hold it together so it can't pull apart.
Where would you get them from? I've never even heard of them.
If you give me a minute, I'll
planes.
go get one and show you.
We usually
you-
just drill. We usually
They
just drill a
use them-
hole and then use a body pin.
Yeah, that's a good way
Yeah.
to do it. That's
Yeah,
what
I did
this
that.
tab is for,
That-
basically.
That's the one I had
Tyrone,
that failed
they-
last year, but it was in the actual connector itself. So
Okay. So anyway, this part is the one that mounts onto the throttle holder. I mean, we can add it here, I suppose. Yesterday, I realized I haven't designed anything in so long that I kept forgetting where everything is. It's been a while. I think it will come back if I keep designing some stuff. Actually, I need to do that too, so it will. Okay, so this part sits on the servo holder. Servo screw, well, the carbon plate goes here and then the servo screws to this. So just to help with the heat also, some things that we do is that we cut this tab off. You can cut this with a Dremel or knife or probably even scissors. It's not that thick. And we do that just to allow for more airflow. Zoom is covering some controls.
That clear plastic. Right now, it's only half of the connection in there.
Oh, okay.
But obviously, when they're connected together, both halves are inside the clear plastic.
Do you usually mount that on the outside of the receiver box?
That. I fit it in the receiver box with the battery. So when the battery connects, it just snaps around them, tucks in, and the connection will never come apart.
Oh. Yeah. Must be using a much smaller battery than me.
So
I think if you have any brick pack, you can fit that in there on the side of the battery. But I think the best way is to just route the battery wire into where the receiver is and plug it directly into the receiver. It's a bit annoying because you need to have the body off to do it, yes. For practice, it's easier to have it outside so you can have the body on and turn the power on and off. But for races, yeah, it's the safest to plug it direct in the receiver. And what you can do is you can have a part of servo wire and cut it, bend it, and glue it to the plug. So you have something to hold on to when you pull it out of the receiver. So you aren't pulling the battery wires. So just some servo lead is perfect for that. But anything you can glue on there to make a tab that you can pull on. So then what we also do is we cut this tab, like I said, and then on the inside, we drill some holes. So, I mean, anything goes, but I make at least 2 big holes here and then smaller ones here in the middle.
Yeah, cool. That makes
like
sense.
that. So then when you do this, you have more airflow around the servo and it helps to keep it cooler. And since we've been doing this, we haven't had servos fail.
Yeah, awesome.
We run
Excellent.
on near 40-degree days sometimes in WA, and we have never had a servo fail by doing these. And this is before we've had this new the metal part of the mount.
Okay,
You
that's
had to say it.
good to hear.
You had to say it.
I did, but
Yeah,
I'm
jinxing.
just helping.
State titles are in 3 weeks.
And that's why I bought spare servos.
Okay. So then the steering servo mount. Have you seen this new part? Start at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
So now we have this. Our friend is over here. Don't mind him. Servo mounts underneath this plate. And now we come to the Kevin. So Kevin, our dear friend from America, he will now denote this measurement from this plate to the underside of the servo. When we know that measurement, then we can determine how many shims we need to add here. Because I realized it's going to be annoying if everyone has to just figure out the shims by trial and error. So we invented the Kevin measurement. And based on your Kevin measurement, the instructions will tell you how many shims to place here for the height of the servo. 4 is the most that you can place. These all come with the part. I have it right here. So the screws and shims and nuts come with that carbon plate. Then, let's see. Yep. Then we also have a new radio tray. So there's a larger opening for the servo here. Easy to assemble. This is pretty straightforward, I'm sure. And then finally, you just assemble the sub-assembly of the servo and the plates into the car. And the reason we did this is Pekko's idea. Pekko, are you here? You can explain. Take it away. Why did we do this? What's the benefit?
So we did this part to get rid of that when the chassis is flexing from the front, that the servo horn is not like moving because of the chassis flex in the front. Because now when it's fixed to the front gearbox, the flex also moves the servo, so the steering doesn't change throughout the flex. So basically, when you hit the bump at the track, and for example, there is a long sweeping corner and there is some bumps, you don't have to correct your steering angle, because this actually, you do it when like unconsciously, when you are correcting the car a bit, But when you put this part, you don't have to do it, and you're like, oh, okay, I can just keep the same angle throughout the corner. So basically, it just makes the car more easier to drive, and yeah, more consistent. Also, in the like jumps, just before the jump, you have like more steering feeling, so you can steer the car just before the jump and straight after the jump. So you don't have this flex because of the chassis. So yeah, it's more consistent, I would say. And also you have this steering feeling straight before the jump.
Yeah, I was skeptical if this would make a difference, but it really does make a difference. And I think at the track like DNC, it was probably a big help. We didn't try it back to back, but the track I tried it back to back a number of times was relatively smooth, just a few small bumps, and I could notice it there. So I can only imagine how big of a difference it is on a really bumpy track. So a really good upgrade, but not something you have to have, okay? We were talking about 5-minute runs and being consistent. If you are not able to do that at the moment, then this is not going to help you do that, right? You have to be able to do that first, and then you'll notice all of these small upgrades and changes. Okay, so here's a picture of the brake linkage on the car. This is the goal. This is what we need to achieve. First, you know this part is the easy adjustment, whatever it's called. I can't remember. But there's a small O-ring that comes with this part, and many people assemble this wrong. They put the O-ring on here, and then they tighten this. No, the O-ring goes inside this part in a groove, just the same way as the ride height adjustment nut on the shock, for example. Same idea. There's a groove in this part, and you put the O-ring in there. Then you thread it on with the O-ring side first. So the O-ring is over here, and then you thread it onto this part, and you leave a 1 mil gap. The O-ring is there to keep this from moving on its own, and the gap is here so that you can adjust this in either direction. I can tighten this, I can loosen it, and this is the way that I can adjust the brake bias. So many people take that small black O-ring and they put it here, and then they tighten this all the way, and then it's not doing anything. So that black O-ring, you put it inside the groove here, then you thread it on with the O-ring to the right. The O-ring hits the threads first. Then, when you have these assembled here, you can see that that's how I started, but then I have adjusted the bias. I've increased the gap here, increasing rear brake. I've decreased it here, decreasing front brake. So using these, we can quickly adjust the brake bias. That's the point. Then another really good tip, and something that's going to be standard in the car, is how we use an O-ring on the front. This is just a shock O-ring. And then here on the rear, we have the rear fuel tank gasket, which is a lot softer. The reason for this is that when you want to increase your brake, you can do so with your radio. But what you don't want to happen is that you increase the end point on your radio and you get more rear brake than front, because that's like a handbrake, and it can make your car hard to control under braking. So to avoid that, to reduce or remove the risk of that happening, we make it so when you add more throw, you add more end point to the brake, this rubber grommet will compress, and this won't compress as much. So you will be adding a bit more front brake than rear. And this has proven to be very good because it maintains the same feeling for the brake balance, even if you add more brake on the radio. Then just quickly, other mistakes people make when they assemble this is they leave a gap that is too big on the brake pads. So you really need to tighten this screw all the way. And then as you are assembling, you push the brake pads together and you check the gap between the outer pad and the screw, and it should be just 0.5 mil or so, no more than that. So it's quite a small gap. Basically the smallest gap on all 4 screws that still allows the diff to spin freely without the brake discs dragging on the pads. Then these levers, you can adjust the height of them, and they should be the highest possible. So you make sure that they go all the way through the cams, but not a lot through them. Just all the way and flush. That's it. And the reason why this link is bent is that when you rotate it a bit, it changes the height of the link. And different servos are different heights. That's why we have this. And you can achieve a good brake linkage with all different servos just with this advice that I just shared. What you want to see is you want to move the throttle from neutral all the way open and towards brake, and these levers should always move freely on the brake link. If they bind at some point, there's a problem and you need to readjust. So I have not come across a car where the gap on the pads are small, everything moves freely, the links are tall, throughout the travel of throttle and brake, the levers are free. I have not come across a car where this is correct and the brakes don't work. So it's always one of these details that's wrong that's causing a problem. So this is something you really need to pay attention to make sure it's right. Any thoughts on that?
What's the difference between the OG brake discs and the V2s?
The material and finish. So the first brakes would fade. They would fade and then they would get notchy. And then these new brakes, they seem to be a lot longer lasting, where they don't get notchy.
Is that pad?
So both pads are different and the disc is different.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
What do you mean by notchy?
I mean that you couldn't set a good brake force that's smooth. So it would grab a lot, almost lock, and then it would let loose suddenly. So it was an uneven, notchy brake feeling. Okay. Any other questions or concerns with the car? Some issues you've been having, something we need to go over like that?
Can I just ask one thing?
Yeah.
The one thing I still haven't got my head around yet is how to quickly change the center diff. Seems like quite a lot of disassembly to me, unless I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, you have to remove the 4 screws below the chassis, and then I remove the brake linkage from the throttle servo arm. So those 5 screws.
Yeah.
And then I undo or pop off the throttle ball cup on the carb just to get it out of the way. And then you can lift the diff out. So you lift the entire center diff mount assembly with the brake linkage. You lift it out of the car.
Yeah. Then you've got the 4 screws on the side and the 2 on the cap at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the diff out. That's how I do it. And when I do that, I always make sure to so remove the diff from the mount, remove the discs, place the discs down so the discs go in the same direction in the same place. So I don't mix them up, right? And then I redo my diff. If that's probably why I'm taking it out. Then I put the discs back in the same direction, same place, and reassemble, because then you aren't changing the brake bias or setting if the discs are different or if they're worn in a particular way. So you won't have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put
This is a part that.
That's what I always forget.
Sorry?
Put the drive shafts back in. I usually forget that at least once.
Yeah. It's a good idea. I think it's actually easier when you put that, when you take it out, it doesn't matter, right? You pretty much just get it out. But putting it in, it's easier to put the rear drive shaft first and then the front.
Yeah, okay. I've been doing it front first and the rear. I'll give it a try.
Yeah, I think it's easier that way. So rear first, then front.
Yeah, awesome.
But that's actually a part that we are working on improving or changing with a single brake that is connected to the main gear. So that's something we're working on and it doesn't exist currently. So it would be nice if that really is a improvement. It would be something unique for Mayako.
Well, you've got the brakes on the side, which not every car does. So it seems like you've got the potential to make it a lot simpler in terms of taking that diff out.
Yes, the JQ car used to have it actually. The JQ buggy had the brakes on the side, and you could pull the diff out the top with just 4 screws.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this overall is better, but it's just harder to work on.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome, thanks, man.
Yeah. The new base setup. Where do we start? Let's start with the diffs and shocks. The diffs are really key on this car. And again, Pekko, are you here?
Yep.
Okay, Pekko, talk about the diffs, because this is the Pekko diff setup where we have same oil front and rear and then a thicker center diff.
Yeah, basically this comes from 10 scale off-road where we run the same diffs in front and rear in 4WD. And I was just thinking that maybe I should try with the 8 scale also. And the feeling with this, it will make your car more balanced and it will still have steering and the drive out of the corners. So for example, when you go like much thicker diff in front, it makes the car push a bit into the corner. And the same for the rear. If you go thicker, it will start to fishtail and do something weird when you go like full throttle out of the corner. But with this, you can run thicker in front and rear when they are the same walls. It somehow balances the car out and makes it just more consistent and more balanced, like the front and rear.
And we have now tried this on all kinds of different tracks. So low speed, high speed, big, small, tight, open, high grip, low grip, bumpy, inconsistent grip, dusty, blue groove, oiled, natural, like all kinds of different tracks, and it just works. And what we change is the thickness of the oil. So it could be 10, 15, 10, or 10, 20, 10, or 15, 30, 15, or like here now, 30, 50, 30. So because this is now for a high grip track. So smooth, high grip track, maybe it's oiled or treated in some way. 30, 50, 30 is a safe starting point for that. And on high grip tracks, we go really high in diff oils, even like 100, 200, 100, or at the world's 300, 500, 300. So this 30, 50, 30, it's not a crazy thick diff oil. For many other cars, it might be that way, but not for the Mayako. So this is still a sort of safe setup, honestly. So diffs, you adjust the thickness depending on the condition. And a good rule of thumb, this is now all the drivers listen, but also mechanics. If the problem that you're having with traction or control of the car happens on power, So you get on power and the car feels loose or the rear end slides out. Then thinner diffs will make your car easier to drive most of the time. So it's a rule of thumb. On power, I have problems controlling my car. So I'll go thinner diffs and see if that solves it. So in this case, maybe you would go, depending on how serious the issue is, maybe you would go 20, 40, 20 or 20, 30, 20 as an example and see if that improves it. Then the opposite is true if your issues are mostly off power. So on power, your car is fine, but then entering corners and driving off power, the car is nervous, you suddenly lose the rear end mid-corner, or entering corners is difficult. So if you can identify that on power your car is fine, but off power it's difficult, then you would go to thicker oils. And again, you can go thicker in all three diffs. So if you have been running 2015, for example, maybe you'd go to this 30, 50, 30. Does that make sense? Is that a good rule to remember? Same oil front and rear. Problem on power, go thinner. Problem off power, go thicker. Good.
I think that's how DJ's been showing and informing me, at least, and Elliot, I believe, on what to do.
Good. Yeah.
30, 50, 30 is actually what I ran at our states warm up at the grouped up track that I was talking about, and that felt pretty unreal.
Okay, good. Good. Then shocks. So diffs and shocks, they are sort of the first things really that we tend to think about when it comes to setup. If we go to a new track, that's what we want to set correctly or in the ballpark first. The 515 piston comes standard because it's the most universal on our car. 515 in the front almost always when we run 5-hole, but then the rear is different. So sometimes we run 515, sometimes 215, 316, sometimes 516. Why do we do that? When we drill some of the rear piston holes bigger, it makes the rear end of the car feel softer and more plush and handle bumps more. So it depends on the surface of the track. The fewer bigger holes, so 515 versus 812, 813, for example. The difference here is when we have fewer bigger holes, the car feels more calm and stable. Everything happens a bit slower. The oil in the shocks, you can feel it when you move the suspension up and down. So it's a thick feeling. And this, I would say, is when the car is the most easy to drive. When you have a 5-hole piston, 15, 16, for example, a very thick feeling oil, then your car will feel calm and stable. The opposite, if we go to 8-hole, 1, 2, 1, 3, especially if we go to an 8-hole, for example, the Ultimate Racing piston, where they have those pistons where the holes are angled. That kind of piston is what we would run on tracks that are, I would say, higher grip and very smooth. Maybe an oil track, we could try something like this. And the reason is that, especially in hot weather, high grip, prepared track, the 5-hole pistons will always feel too soft. And the car will always feel like it's rolling, and you lack precision and speed. And you feel that the suspension isn't supporting the car enough. Then a piston with more smaller holes will allow the car to feel more firm and stiff on the track and drive more flat. And you will feel like you have more confidence driving the car. So fewer bigger holes versus more smaller holes is the opposite end of a spectrum in a way. Both can work in all conditions, right? But they are different, and most drivers prefer them in the same way. Like a difficult, bumpy DNC style track, most drivers would prefer 5-hole. Philippine Masters, smooth, oiled, high grip, hot weather, most drivers would prefer 8-hole. So it's not like a firm 100% rule, but it's a good indication of what you should run. And then the 6 and 7-hole pistons here, they are sort of in between. So the step isn't so big. You can go to 6 or 7 or 8. Does that make sense? Any questions about this?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, on the 7-hole, why are the shock wheels the same?
These are the starting shock wheels that we've gathered over the years when we've been running various different pistons set at 20 degrees. And the settings that we have for the 7 and the 8-hole, they are really close to having the same shock oil front and rear. 7-hole, we mostly, when we did this, we ran the same oil front and rear. And I think it's just because of how the piston packs up. So pack is when you land a jump or hit a bump, or the piston moves quickly. It wants to seize the shock, basically. Pack means that the movement of the shock, the friction within the shock gets higher and higher and higher, and it locks up the shock. So the way this happens, the speed at which it happens, it's dependent on the piston you run and then the viscosity of the oil. And it just so happens that with these settings, the same oil front and back seems to work.
Okay, yeah, because this track we're talking about at Collie, it's high grip, but there's still a few bumps there, and there's a few good decent jumps there. So I was thinking, I didn't like 5-hole, as you say, it slaps around too much. 6 was almost the same thing, and 8 definitely felt like it was a lot trickier to drive. It felt like it was sitting on the surface a lot more. So I was thinking 7 might be the go, just sit in between somewhere.
So what is the main issue there? Is it the traction level or the bumps? Or what is that?
For me, it would be traction level, but also I'm not sure if this comes into it or not, but the trickiness of the track. It's quite a tricky track, and there's a lot of areas where you need a comfortable car to make it easy to get through.
Yeah. So there are different things to consider, I would say. This is the very basic, the amount of holes, right? So fewer bigger or more smaller. That's one thing. More smaller, the car is more firm, flat, responsive. Fewer bigger, the car is more calm, comfortable, slow, less responsive. Then other things to consider is when you have a piston with angled holes, you have a piston that you can set very soft for small ripples and bumps like that, but then it packs up more on harder impacts. So it's, again, a slightly different feel. Or if you have a smaller diameter piston, because the Mayako piston is a big size piston, so Associated, Kyosho, HB, they are all smaller size, or TRC, also they make a piston. They are smaller diameter. And again, a smaller diameter piston is more forgiving. So that's also something to try and consider. So, but I would say lower grip, smaller piston can be better. Higher grip, the bigger piston, the Mayako piston can be better. And Ultimate Racing have the big size piston with angled holes. And maybe that is what I would run at the track you described. And maybe I would run 7 holes and find the right size for the holes. They have them. I think they are green and yellow, the piston colors.
Yeah, I did try them last
good.
time at our old track. You just got to be mindful of running too heavier oil with the conical piston.
Yeah, so with Ultimate Piston, when you feel the car in the pits, it can feel quite soft. When you run a 5-hole normal piston, the suspension should feel quite heavy. When you run a 7 or 8-hole piston Ultimate with the angled holes, it should feel sort of medium to thin even, because it packs up that much on the track. Yes, my best guess would be you could try something like the 713, 715. After this I can send some different setups we've had.
Okay, that would be good. My other question regarding the oil viscosity and temperature. What is the temperature difference and the viscosity difference that we should be making adjustments for? Like, is it 50 CST every 5 degrees or 10 degrees, or what is it?
It's hard to quantify, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees, I would say. So if 20 is the base, and it also depends on the track, right? So let's say that 20 degrees is the base and you have a good setting. I think at 25, you can still have the same, especially if you're on a loose track. But if you're on a high grip track, maybe already at 25, you would want to go thicker. So it's not, unfortunately, there is not a clear rule for this, that this is the thing, this is the amount. No, but let's say if it's 20 degrees, you have one oil, then it's 27, you're going to notice a difference. You know, you're going to go thicker. Or if it's 20 degrees and now it's 12, 13 degrees, it's so much cooler that you go thinner. But the higher grip the track is, the more you will notice this. So the sooner you will want to adjust your shock oils. The looser the track, the less you notice this.
I think DJ, with the track, with where I'm going to try to get it, it'll be almost borderline like an Astro, like our last year's state title on grass setup. I'd be thinking that we're running shock oils that are a little bit higher. The traction is going to be pretty high. I'm going to put plenty of water on it the week before. So, yeah, I'd probably be starting a bit higher than probably where we were last Saturday.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the temperature and what it's likely to be in a few weeks down there. And my best guess would possibly be 30 degrees.
Yeah, I think you'd be pretty right.
So, Q, would you say there's much point to stuff like the PRC pistons and all that? Or is it just better off just running either like the Ultimate piston or the factory Mayako pistons?
Well, we have never managed to make the VRP or MIP pistons work better than just normal regular pistons. I think that having valving so you have different compression and rebound is good, but I think the way they've done it now isn't, because it just tends to make the car more bouncy and nervous. So it's, and also harder to get a good setting for different tracks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think in the future we will have some different developments that are better, but for the moment, the only sort of real setup modification that is definitely worthwhile is those springs that you place under the piston. So on smooth high grip tracks, we run a small internal spring on the shock shaft under the piston, front and rear, and it helps to keep the car more flat. And that is really a good tuning aid. But it doesn't work on really bumpy, rough tracks, and it doesn't work on low grip, just high grip, smooth tracks.
Are they just like a spring similar to what the brakes have in them, or is it
No,
a specific...
they are like a cone-shaped spring. Sismic have them, and I made some samples with Mayako a long time ago, but we need to actually produce them now because the tracks are going in that direction, so we need them more and more often.
Yeah, I'd say like even I know Timmy's tried them a little bit, and like watching one of the other non-Mayako drivers that has this product, the SOTA inserts that are going inside the shock body look like they make a drastic difference to just how quickly you can get on power, how the car handles, how flat the car goes through corners and everything.
I need to get some for maybe Philippine Masters and then test after. I think that basically that shock thing you're talking about, it is position sensitive. So based on where the piston is, the damping will be different. And the way he set it up now, I think, is that at ride height, it's soft and then gets firmer. And I think, yes, this kind of idea can work, but not in that way, because I think actually what we want is firm damping around ride height to have traction and precision. And then when needed, it gives a bit. So it's kind of the opposite. But if position sensitive damping was very good, then they would be using it in full size racing, but they aren't. If they are somewhere, then they definitely, it's like complemented by other settings that we don't have. So I think at the moment, you don't need to run anything but a normal piston, and just choose the diameter of the piston, choose if you want angled holes or straight holes, and those springs under the piston. That's all you need. If you enjoy testing with the MIP, VRP, or this SOTA system, you can. And for some tracks and conditions, you could find a benefit, right? But it's not something you need. And I don't think it's something you can, at this point yet, transfer over to all different conditions and have them be better.
Joseph, sorry, just one more question I just thought of. I heard you mention somewhere about using external shock limiters a lot or often. Can you elaborate on that, please?
So we recently made a higher shock tower as a members-only part. And the reason for that is that we want to try bump stops where we actually control the last part of suspension travel with a rubber bump stop like they have in real cars and in motocross. But we haven't really had time to test it yet. So what we do though is... Yeah, okay. Wait, so what we do know is on the type of track that you spoke about, high grip, oiled, Philippine Masters kind of. On tracks like that, we have those plastic clips that clip onto the shock shaft. So on the rear, we use those to limit up travel, because up travel is when you compress the chassis, hits the table, and you try to lift the rear tire. It can lift up a bit. That's up travel. So we add those plastic spacers, 2 mil on the rear shock shaft so that it can't move up. And that helps on high grip tracks to keep the car more flat and corner faster. But it's worse in bumps, so you have to keep that in mind.
What sort of clip are they? Are they like, again, sorry, are they like a specific thing?
Yeah, it's a Mayako spare part.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Tyrone, you can just use fuel tube.
Fuel tube isn't good because it's too soft. You can use any plastic shim really. The rear hub shim works, for example. You wouldn't. Well, you can, I guess, use the plastic bushing also from the shock. You just want it to be big enough where it doesn't damage that outer plastic seal also. So
yeah, I know Felix ran 5mm up travel limiters on the front at last year's nationals in Australia.
Okay.
And
Front,
he was running
honestly,
really heavy diffs. So, shock oils. He was running really heavy shock oils.
Yeah. Front is something I haven't tested enough because it's more forgiving when you don't run up travel limiters in the front, but honestly need to try that more also. It could be a benefit.
Yeah, he ran 5mm up travel limiters last year, and I think he was running 80 weight front shock oil. It was but that was on that oil track, which was flat and fast. And
yeah, but we would have to know the pistons to know. That's actually, this is a lesson also. Many people ask, oh, what shock oil are you running? It's an irrelevant question because if you don't know what piston someone is running, the shock oil doesn't matter. So that's just something to keep in mind, that shock oil depends on the piston you run.
Yeah,
but again, this comes back to what you said ages ago of don't chase pro setups either because they drive the car so much harder. If we set our cars up potentially same as Felix, we're just not going to have the traction level he has.
Yeah, you need higher skill to drive a more precise car. Okay, so the starting setup, high grip, diffs and shocks. This is something which is impossible to just write on a sheet and you put it on and it's perfect. You have to know a bit and think a bit about the track that you are on to decide. So on power issue, go thinner. Off power issue, go thicker. That's the rule of thumb. Same oil front and rear, thicker in the center. Shock pistons. This is, I think, also where the mentors come in. The mentors in this program, you need to have the knowledge and experience of pistons and oils, and you can help point people in the right direction. Also, this is where Discord comes in. You can send a video of your track, of your driving, or explain what the issue is, and people can chime in with their recommendations. So when you get the diffs and shocks right, the rest of the setup is really good. Your car should handle well. But let's go over a few things. High grip, the links on the towers. This is step number one. It's very often easier to just move the links up. That will help the car be more in the track, less likely to flip over. It will not be so responsive. It will roll down. A good setting. So links up on the towers. Then caster. This is a bit of a preference thing also. I'll just give you a rule of thumb to think about. So KPI 1, caster 1 or 2, it doesn't matter really, just the KPI 1. This has the smoothest initial steering, but then mid to exit, you have a feeling of more steering. So if everything is perfect, you'll feel that the car is easy and numb and comfortable to drive. The problem you can have is mid to exit. So as you are exiting corners, if it's difficult to exit and maintain rear traction, or if it's difficult to drive through the middle part of the corner where you are about to get on power or getting on power, if this is your issue, then KPI 1 could be the reason, right? KPI 0.5 is more reactive, more responsive into corners, but then mid to exit, it's easy. You feel very safe driving the car middle of the corner and out. You have good rear traction. The car goes where you expect it to go. So it's really good for that reason. So if you are running KPI 0.5 and your problem is entering corners and you're always fighting a car that's too nervous and aggressive and you can barely touch the wheel, okay, then go to KPI 1. If you are always struggling mid to exit of corners and going in is super smooth and easy, but then you are scared of getting on power and accelerating out, okay, go to KPI 0.5. Does this make sense? I hope so.
Yep.
Yeah, it
So,
does.
yeah, so this setting, I would say, is similar to the diffs and the shocks, where I can't make a basic setup sheet and it's going to be great for everyone, because this is such a fundamental change. This is something that every driver has to decide for themselves. Pekko went through this process, for example. Maybe he can explain, but in the start, the first year, really, he was KPI 1. Oh, no, KPI 0.5. No, KPI 1. Every race, every track, he was going between the two, which is hard then to really make the car perfect because it's such a big change. So maybe Pekko can explain what he decided to choose and why, and now he basically always runs the same.
Yeah, at the first we were going like changing it quite a lot to see the difference, but now I have settled with the KPI 0.5 and caster 2, and that's just because KPI 0.5 give you, for me, it gives better feeling for the steering, and it has a bit more response into the corner, and out of the corner the car is more settled down and it doesn't like try to overturn the corner at the end of the corner. And also the caster 2, it smoothens out a bit the KPI 0.5 feeling, so it's a bit easier into the corner, and then in the middle of the corner and out of the corner it gives a bit more steering, but not as much as KPI 1. So for me it has been the best option to go.
Let's talk about a few settings which you don't need to really change, okay? At least for now. The front kick up 0-0, it's always good. It will never be an issue. You can improve your car maybe, but you could always run 0-0 and be happy. You can always run no shim under the front diff and be happy. Shocks on the front, middle, you can always run that. Long link, you can always run that. Knuckle position, the middle, you can always run that. Middle for the front arm, you can always run it. Bump steer, we'll talk more in detail about it later, but the 0-0 setting, up, down for the balls, is always good. This, the link on the Ackerman plate, number 1 setting almost always. The only time we would go back is on very high grip, where you are struggling with a car that turns too much. What happens is you move the link back, initial steering is good, but then it starts to push a bit. So you'll feel that the car is easier to drive. So on extreme high grip, move the link back. Otherwise, always run it forward. It's good. This is a really good thing to change, though. The link on the knuckle plate. Long plate, hole in, shortest possible link is the smoothest steering you can have. The further out you move this, the more aggressive steering you'll have. So short link, smooth, easiest setting. And you could even always run that if you want. I think Robert pretty much always ran it like that. So that's really the front end. We have some options, the universals, we always run those, but the CVDs are fine. You can run them. We run the universals because we get more steering. We like that. But it's not something you have to have.
I guess this kind of applies to the front and rear. I'm not sure if you just spoke about it then, but the shock position on the arm, why would you say, because it's in the middle for this one, say if you moved it out on a high grip track, what's that going to do to the arm, to the way the car handles?
Okay, so I would say that, for example, at the Worlds, we ran front and rear out. And it's, if you're on a high grip, high speed track, the forces that are transferred into the car are much higher. And when you move the shock out here, the force of the spring and the damping at the wheel they are more effective, right? So the car is stiffer, firmer. So when you move this out, the car will stay more flat. It will be more responsive, but the mid corner you'll have a bit less traction. So on high grip tracks, that can be something that makes it easier to drive. But like I said, this is not make or break, do or die. Like, you can always run the same position and you'll be okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And the same that I said here applies to the rear, but front, if you lose traction on the front end mid corner, it makes the car easier to drive because it pushes a bit. Rear, if you lose traction mid corner, the rear wants to slide out. So the effect is the same, but front makes it easier, rear can make it harder. So something just to keep in mind. Okay, rear end. Shock positions. I would say that front, always middle, fine. Rear, not the same. Arm, middle, always good, for sure. But shock tower is more interesting. So it has a really big effect on how the car corners. The easy setting for high grip track is definitely middle hole on the 5-hole tower or outside on the 3-hole tower. When you start moving the rear shock in on the rear tower, you will begin to have more rotation in corners, so mid to exit. The reason I put this up on this setup is that many drivers on higher grip, if they do the corner well, then they get on power and exit the corner, they might have a problem. The car might roll too much, oversteer out, get unsettled, those kind of things. So to have the safest possible car on exit, you stand up the rear shock. So if your car is very easy to drive and you're very consistent, maybe you lack a bit of steering, you drop this shock to the middle, you'll notice you have more steering and your car feels faster. So this is something that I do recommend that you try for yourself.
JQ, just a suggestion on that setup sheet, how it's written. Like, I've got both cars. I've got the original Proto with the 5 holes and everything. That 1 to 5 is a little bit confusing.
Yeah, well, there's the image here with the 3 holes. So I think one of the versions we had 2 holes which are faded a bit. So you understand that the 3 inside are stock, and then these are options on the 5-hole tower.
I believe it was the 22 setup sheet had the extra holes above it to give the 5-hole description.
Yeah, but we are sort of phasing out that tower anyway. So it's only going to be 3 holes in the future.
Yeah. No, cool. Yeah, because I've definitely got mine in the number 2 position, and I probably should have it in the number 3, having it stood up. Look, well, with that explanation anyway.
Yeah. Then, where do we go then? Rear hub. Let's talk about the rear hub. Plastic rear hub has the low axle position. So it would be that one or this one. And this is the one part where my opinion is that you benefit a lot from getting the optional CNC hub. So either the standard sort of CNC hub or the 3-piece hub. The reason is that you can raise the axle to the middle, which, in my opinion, makes the car easier to drive. Also, you have more options for the upper link, and you have higher holes, which also make the car easier to drive. So you don't have to get the CNC hub, especially if you are at the stage where you are practicing, you're driving and trying to do 5-minute consistent runs. You don't need the CNC hub. If you are spending money, flying to races, traveling to races, you're trying to do the best you can, yes, then it's worth getting the CNC hub because you have more adjustability and I think you can improve the handling of the car. The difference between the standard CNC option part and the 3-piece is that 3-piece we can adjust offset. Then you need the adjustable arm also to match the offset, but this gives you so many more options for setting up the car. Long is same as standard, and that's the most stable, most overall grip for the car. And the shorter you go, the more offset you give, the more initial grip you have, the more rotation you have. You go into a corner, you have good grip. Mid-corner, the rear wants to allow the car to rotate by sliding a bit. You get on power, the rear grips again. So easiest is down here, but fastest is middle or here, where you have shorter arm and more offset. But on your style of tracks, I think you would always want to have the long setting. I'm pretty sure.
So if we're struggling mid-corner to rotate the car, you would say go to the shorter insert in the CNC hub.
Yeah, actually,
first.
The ABC race right now in New Zealand, the track is kind of small and tight. They have hairpins that are just the pipe width, basically. And I advised my Akko guys there, they were running like this, long arm, long link. This, I believe this was the setting they had. I advised them to go like this, middle offset and middle arm. And the reason for this is that this adds more steering, more rotation in tight corners. And also when you get on power, you have good grip. Another reason I recommend you replacing the plastic hub with the CNC one is you can have hub toe. 0 is what the plastic hub is, but you can add 0.5 degree or 1 degree of toe in. And toe in the hub is very good for adding rear traction. If your car is otherwise good, but it's a bit loose, you're a bit scared of getting on power, if you add just 0.5 degree, you'll already notice, okay, now I have grip. Or if you add 1 degree, then you definitely have grip. So these are valuable options.
Would you say that the adjustable rear arm is a must-have, or is the standard rear arm without the adjustability? Because I believe the standard rear arm that doesn't have the pill is just the factory hole is the outside position.
Yes.
Would you
it's
say
not a
that
must-have.
it's not a must? If you've got the ones without the adjustability, that's still perfectly fine.
Yes, because if you have this CNC hub, I would do it like this. I would run middle for middle axle height. Then one plate is long link, so 0 length shims, and 2 plate is short, so 2 mil length shims. You have the option to do that with the plates. And we normally run top outside. And you can add toe in if you want. So you can get a really good setting with this optional rear hub. The only thing is you are fixed to long setting, but that's fine because I think for your tracks, all the ones I've seen, you'll always be running this. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
If we have the outside hole on the arm, but then we're running the short pill on in the CNC hub, the 3-piece hub, sorry. What
so
is
if you're
that
running
a bad
the
thing to be? So the short insert in the 3-piece, but the factory non-adjustable rear arm.
This, you mean?
Yep. So it's that, and then.
But then it would be long, so same as.
Is that bad to have it that way, or it just would feel
This would
really
make
terrible?
No, not necessarily, but the problem is it would be illegal. It would be too wide. And you would definitely have to run the long out drives. But the track width would be too much for the rules. So it would be too wide.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I will change that.
Yeah, if you have that, you need to change that for any races with where they check the measurements of the car.
Would that
Tyrone,
also
have you been cheating, Tyrone?
Potentially by accident. Would that also be like a reason why the rear end might feel too locked in, is because it's so wide?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I found my issue then.
Good.
You're driving a boat, Tyrone.
A dragster.
I want to go fast.
Dragsters don't turn. Rear axle. CVD is standard on the basic car. We've had different universals standard on other cars. This is also a bit dependent on the conditions and the driver, but basically CVD will make the rear end feel the softest, the most overall grip. 94 is next. It's a middle setting, and 91, the stiffest, most initial grip, most aggressive setting. This is explained quite well in the wiki. All these combinations work. We tend to stick to the 91 universal that uses the 8x16 bearing. Pekko, Robert, Thibaut, all pretty much always run that. Ronne Falk was different. He ran the 94. It makes it the rear of the car a bit softer. He preferred that. So this, again, this really is a preference thing. They all work. You would benefit a lot if you read the wiki, understand the difference, try it a couple of times to understand the feeling, and you probably would just pick one that you then always stick to because it's your favorite. This is not really something that is a sort of do or die. You have to do it. If you have a car now with CVD front and rear, it's fine. You're fine. You can set your car up, drive, be happy. Later, if you want to learn and improve, then you start playing with this. The standard 3 degrees, you can always run it. You can always run 0-0 or 0.5 up, 0.5 down. This is the high grip, smooth track setup. So that's why it's 0.5 up, 0.5 down. Just makes the rear end a bit stiffer. 1 mil shim is something that we would run on high grip. The low grip setup that we have has 0-0. Oh no, 0-0 or 0.5 down, 0.5 down, but less anti-squirt in any case, and we have no shim. So this is the type of change we would make. If our car is good, then we go on a high grip track. We would raise the rear arm. Maybe we would add anti-squat, and we would add a 1 mil rear gearbox shim. And these changes help to keep the rear end flat, make the car feel more stable as you're driving on power. This is something you don't need to change. Again, if you have determined you are running on a high grip flat track, you can always run the 1 mil shim. You can always run this arm position. It's fine. This is something that I questioned, like what I put here. I'm still kind of questioning it. Maybe I can ask you, what combination of C and D plates do you run? Like, do you run 1.5, which I think many times can be a lot better on smooth high grip tracks, or do you run some combination like 50C and 54.5D? I would be curious to know.
Well, I had a chat with Felix at Canberra last week, and his opinion was he runs 1.5 toe everywhere unless it's a rough blown out track. He just thinks it's more consistent, which surprised me. My usual way to go is I will reduce rear toe on a high grit track and I'll increase it on a looser track.
Yeah, well, we kind of do the same. When we run the narrow, we run this 50-53, 1.5 pretty much everywhere. DNC would be a track where that's different. DNC, I ran like this. I added a bit of towing because it's when you have a track that's so bumpy and so loose, you want the car to slide less so you don't slide into bumps. On a smooth track, it doesn't matter because sliding is fast, so you are in control, it feels comfortable. But as soon as it's so bumpy, then you want to reduce the sliding a bit, and then you add some towing. So yes, I mean, any combination, 50-53, 50-54, or 48-54, they'll be good. But, okay, if we go, since we have the parts, we should mention them. The wide CND. The wide CND works the best on smooth tracks. Smooth, medium to high grit tracks. That's where the wide CND plate really work well. They just make the car faster, more corner speed. The rear end feels a bit firmer, but like I said, you can run the narrow ones. This setting is probably a good medium. 50-53 for less towing, 48.5, 54.5 for more. If you do decide to run this, or if you have a limited edition kit, the wide CND, you run the way we've run it now is you run the long out drives. So long rear out drives, wide CND block, and then we run the long arm, low offset. So that means you could also run this hub, or even the plastic hub, because we are running long arm, low offset. With this hub or the plastic hub, you have to run a 4mm hex, narrow hex, so the car is legal. Because you are moving the arm out, but keeping the same arm length. So to avoid it from being too wide, you run a narrow hex. I think you can get away with a 5 also. But this is a good setting. I think for medium to high grip, a very good setting. Wide CND block, long arm, low offset. Usually with the 91 universal. Now, not the 91 that comes in the kit that uses the big bearing, the 91 that uses the 8x16 bearing. This is also on the wiki, I believe.
With the 54, 57, do you have to run the long out drives?
With the 54, 57, you don't have to run the long out drives. But in that case, what you need to do is you need to run long setting in the hub, but middle on the arm. And then you run a 5 or 6
have the adjustable arm.
Then you would have
to
run
the 94. Could I run the 94 uni?
No, because these have the same position for the dog bone. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not longer there. It's different joint positions. So if you run the wide 54, 57, you need the long out drive, and then you have the best options available to you for setting.
Joseph, last year at Philippines was the first time I'd run the wide CND, the 54-57.
Yeah.
And when I got back to Perth, I changed back and I ran the 54.5, like you talk about for DNC. And it was comfortable. But lately, probably in the last few months, I've been running the wide CND again everywhere, and really like it. It's great.
Well, this is also a bit of a transition, I suppose. Like some other things that have changed in the past. The shock tower I mentioned, like we're getting rid of these holes. Here, we do run the 54, 57 most of the time now. DNC was the first time in a while that we went narrow. So the only time we don't run the wide CND is when the track is really bumpy, really loose. Then it makes the car harder to drive. And then it's just so much easier to run the narrow blocks. Better in the bumps, more consistent traction, easier to drive. So it sounds like for your national and for Philippine Masters, the wider CND will be better. But for drivers who have issues losing the rear end, struggling in bumps, losing traction mid-corner, the narrower will be better. Okay?
And does the...
Oh, go on, Tyrone.
Does the carbon arms brace affect that at all with how the car handles? Like, does it make it a calmer car to drive?
We've found the carbon to be the best always. All conditions we run them. Even bumpy, loose, like everywhere. We just always run it.
It's just that never changes. It's always the same, no matter what the track, what the grip.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, then let's look at alignments a bit. Here, and this is not a sales pitch or like one of those commercials where
money grab.
Money grab, yeah. Because let me tell you something. Before I was sort of against setup stations. Then in the last years, I began to warm up to them a bit, and then I became of the opinion, okay, now the tracks and the cars are at the point where we have to have setup stations. And that's why I made my own, because there is a lot of benefit to adjusting your car with a setup station now. So I do recommend that once we have the setup station, we'll make some sort of special deal for all the YMP members so that you can all get one for yourselves. And we can really talk about what we're doing, because if you are measuring your camber with a can of beer and you're eyeballing your toe and droop, then you're leaving a lot of performance on the table. Unless you're Ryan Lutz, because Ryan Lutz eyeballs everything, and somehow it was super precise. Left and right was the same, and even the degrees, which is insane. It was like, I asked him how much he's running, and he said, I don't really know, but I think it's about 3 or something. And I check, it's like dead on 3, left and right. I'm like, how do you do this? Is it, I don't know. Anyway, but I don't think many people are Ryan Lutz. So I recommend a setup station, and then I'm going to make a video for how to use it, but camber, very powerful on the car. Before you start making big changes here to the setup, just try different camber settings. It really makes a difference. When you adjust front camber, sorry, I'm in the wrong box. When you adjust front camber, it also affects toe. And this is also where a setup station is good, because you can always adjust your front toe to the same, regardless of what camber you're running. So camber is very powerful. Toe.
Everyone about their different numbers for using a setup station and not using a setup station.
Yes, yes. So when I'll stop this for a moment just to show no tires or cars here. When you use a setup station, what happens is you have the tires and they slide, getting rid of all the play in the suspension to the biggest amount of camber that you can get. When you have tires on, they stick to the table. You press the car down a bit and they settle. They are gripping the table, so they don't allow for the camber to show the biggest degree or the true biggest amount of camber. So when you use a setup station versus not, you will notice there's a difference. And that doesn't matter, because what you are doing is you want to always have a consistent way of checking your settings. So the difference will depend on how much play you have in your car and sort of the rest of the setup of the car, and even the surface you are checking your car on. But it's normally about 1.5 to 2 degrees. So when you have 1.5, or sorry, I keep doing that. When you have 2.5 camber on the front with a setup station, without a setup station, it would probably look like 0.5 degree or 1 degree. So 3.5 in the rear with a setup station looks like a lot, maybe to some people, but then if you check this same thing with tires on, it would be 2 degrees, maybe even 1.5. Is that clear to everyone? That's why we have this note here, that the angles are measured with a setup station, to understand that this number is accurate, but it's bigger than if you just check with a camber gauge and tires. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So camber is really effective. Tow, yes, I think not as much as camber though, but it does affect the car. It's good to have a station so you can always set it to the same. Ride height, the ride height ranges we use pretty much 23 to 26 front, 26 to 28 rear. If you go lower than that, you'll lose a lot of grip. Higher, the car just feels really high on the track and like it wants to lift up and flip over, things like that. So 25, 27, very standard setting, I would say. Before I used to drop the car and then check. Now, mainly because Robert always pushed his car down, and I think David also, then I also adopted that to where I push the car down and then measure where it settles. I'm still not super happy with it, because when you do it, you kind of get different results. So I measure ride height many times and take an average of it. Amount of fuel also affects ride height a lot. So try to be consistent, to have a full tank always when you do it, and the body on, for example. That's probably the best way, because how do you judge half a tank? What does it really matter? Just full tank, body on, ready to go on the track, and then measure your ride height. Push it down, measure.
When you measure your ride height, Jake, if you push it down and then tap the tires, just gently tap all 4 tires, and that will relieve some of the stickiness from the tires, which is what is affecting your ride height adjustment.
Yeah, that's why I used to drop it, because when you drop it, it settles like that more. You know, when you push it down, it kind of sticks. When you drop it, it's higher for that reason, because it releases tension. So maybe that's the next development. We start measuring our ride height with a setup station too, right?
Yeah, well, on that, I do mine with the setup station. I've got like the 25 adjustable little block, and I'll put my front at 25 and hit my front down to 25, and then do my setup station to that 25 mil. So when I've got tires on and I know that I check it at 25, it should be at the right camber and tow that I set it on the setup station.
Yeah, but where the car settles, that's the same no matter what you have on it, like the setup station or a big tire or small tire. The ride height would be different, but where the car settles is the same. So that's the key. But I meant that maybe the next step is to measure the ride height with the setup station also, because then it's truly where the suspension settles, and then sort of have that as a standard. Okay, so droop, very powerful also. This is a really good neutral setting, +2 front, -4 rear. We use the 36 millimeter blocks. 0 means the axle is in line with the underside of the chassis. Front range is basically from 0 to +5. Rear is from 0 to -7, -6, maybe at most. So that's the range we use. And how to think about this? I think I'll give you a rule of thumb when it comes to droop, because droop is so powerful and a really good thing that you can change at the track. If you want the car to be more aggressive, more responsive, and safe out of corners when you get on power, then you reduce front droop. So you would go maybe +4. So into corners, the car is very precise. Then you go on power, and the car is very easy and neutral to drive with less front droop. If you have a problem where the car is too nervous or you need more steering out of corners, you would go to more front droop. It would calm down you go +1, let's say. Calm down initial steering, then you get on power, you have more on power steering. Rear, if your car is super easy to drive, everything's good, you want to go faster, you're on a smooth track, you could reduce your droop. Maybe even go really low on droop. It will help make the car faster, carry more corner speed, can even feel more stable on a smooth high grip track. If your car feels difficult to control mid-corner, it doesn't corner smoothly, maybe you lose traction mid-corner, you would go to more rear droop. If your car isn't handling bumps well, you're on a rough track, maybe you would go to even more rear droop. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah. I noticed a massive difference at Collie. I changed that late in the day last week when we were testing, and I ended up at +2, -2.
Yeah.
And it was a massive difference on how we've got a really, really fast sweeper, how the car squatted into that corner, like DJ mentioned earlier, that everyone was struggling with how the car squatted. It was a huge difference in the car stayed a lot more flatter and a lot more stable through those faster sections.
Yeah. +2, -2 is actually a setting we've run quite a lot. It's good. Roll bars, also a good setting. The way to think about it, I think, is thicker front roll bar is more responsive, but you lose steering mid-corner. So responsive, but then after that you lose steering. Thinner roll bar on the front, less responsive, easier initially, but then mid-corner you have more steering. So this makes it so as the grip goes up, you start on a very loose track, then the grip starts going up. You also start increasing the thickness of your roll bar and you're comfortable and you're happy. But then at some point, if it's super high grip and there's no sliding happening at all, then going even thicker would actually be worse because your car gets so nervous to drive. And then maybe that's it, you just stop at 2.3 and adjust other things instead. The rear is similar in the way that low grip, you can go to a lower bar, very bumpy track, again, lower bar, like DNC. We had a thin anti-roll bar because it just helps to give more traction throughout the corner and handle bumps better. The higher the grip, the more support you need as you exit corners, so you go to a thicker bar. even higher grip or very fast track, you're on power a lot, even harder, then the problem that can happen is that you start losing traction suddenly on the rear, mid-corner usually, or someone mentioned here that you had a problem, maybe it's even more noticeable with a thicker bar where the car wants to tripod into corners, the rear wants to lift up, the inside rear tire wants to come off the track. Well, this is because the rear is too stiff, and the roll bar is one of the main causes of this. So actually, going back down to a thinner roll bar will help eliminate that. And then you make other adjustments to keep it more flat as you exit corners. So roll bar really is like a bell curve that you start thin on low grip, then you go thicker as the grip gets higher. And then as the grip gets really high, then you start going thinner again. So something to remember. And the range we go on roll bars is 2.1 to 2.3 on the front and 2.4 to 2.6 on the rear. That's the most common range, I would say. Option parts, just a bit about them. So the standard black MX-8, it's a good car out of the box. You can run it.
No, that's all right. I was on a computer meeting. I'm on a meeting on the computer. All right, I'll run down. Hold on.
Okay, so the option parts, you can run the MX-8 standard black kit as it comes. It's good. You can win the Australian Nationals with it. I guarantee that. But we have option parts, and we have parts that change the performance of the car. I listed a few here. The long chassis, this is one which Pekko likes, for example, but Ronne Falk didn't like. So it's not a must-have as such, but it's something that can make the car more stable and comfortable for you. The wing of David is definitely more stable than the kit wing. I recommend you run this wing. This is the easiest, most stable. Lexan wings are more aggressive, more rotation, potentially faster, but harder to drive and less stable in the air. Rear carbon braces, I said, yeah, we always run them. It's not a must-have, but they are better, I think. I think the front universal is something that I will always run because I prefer the feeling of the CVD. More steering throughout the corner, where I feel the CVD loses steering in the corner. Rear universal is something that depends on the track, driver preference. I don't ever run CVDs in the rear because I feel it's too soft feeling. So I run 94 or 91. 94 for softer feel, 91 for firmer feel. I don't know which one Cavalieri will end up on. Pekko runs 91 always because he's an animal out there on the track, like Robert. They both run 91s always because it makes the car stiff and firm when you get on power. Ronne Falk ran the 94. Cavalieri, I'm unsure. So I am open on this question. We have to try more. We have to try the different ones more to figure out which one he prefers. CNC hub I mentioned, very good option part because you can adjust toe and axle height. The C&D blocks, very good option parts because you can adjust toe in and also the width. The wide 54, 57, very good on oiled and glued smooth tracks. Then the KPI, this is something you have to figure out for yourself, which one you prefer, KPI 0.5 or KPI 1. I'm like Pekko, I actually prefer KPI 0.5 and Caster 2 pretty much everywhere now. Philippine Masters will be interesting. I'll try both and see that is it true there also. Because if I prefer KPI 0.5 and Caster 2 at Philippines, then I know that I'll always prefer it. And the floating steering servo mount, not a must-have, but if you are truly serious about your racing and you're spending money and time and effort and flying to races and traveling to races, then it's worth getting this part because it does improve the handling of the car.
Is the new front shock tower that was in the members area also worth it with the wider pivot?
I don't know yet because I haven't run it.
So JQ, can you now run through the changes that you would make in some sort of order to stop that jacking on the rear end, inside rear wheel? And I don't think it's the sway bar because we're on 2.6, 2.3, and I feel like a 2.5 would be too soft.
So higher grip track, and you have a problem where on corner entry the rear end of the car wants to jack up and the inside tire wants to come off that track, right?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So I want to make the car more stable on entry, more flat. Okay. Well, I would make sure that I'm running the link up on the tower. I wouldn't be running the plastic
Is that
up.
rear only or front and rear?
The front doesn't affect it that much. Actually, maybe even running it lower on the front would be better for this particular problem. But let's start with the rear end. So link would be up. I wouldn't be running the plastic hub. I would be running the CNC or 3-piece. And I would have the axle height in the middle. I would have long arm, definitely. Length shims anywhere from 0 to 2. Height shims 2 to 3. Then I would lay down the rear shock if I have it all the way up, because it helps with this problem, entering corners. I would pay attention to how it is on exit. Does it have enough support? You said you have a 2.6 and you don't want to change that?
Yeah, I have a 2.6. I don't feel like it needs changing, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
So what C&D plates do you have?
Wide 54, 57.
Wide, and what pills?
The same as in your sheet there.
Same as here? Well,
Yes.
One thing that can help with this is just going lower. So I would lower the inside arm 0.5 mil to see, does that help me? And are you running a 1 mil shim?
Yes, I am, yes.
Yeah, that should be okay. And what spring do you have?
Black.
Okay. You can also try a brown spring and see if that helps you. But basically, laying the shock over a bit makes it softer. The brown spring would be softer, but it's not always that straightforward. Black or brown, you can try both and see. The upper link high, the lower arm a bit lower. All these things help to allow the car to roll on entry instead of jacking up so much. Then on the front, you can also try to combat this. You can try to stiffen up the front so it doesn't dive as much. So you can maybe try to stand up the front shock on the tower. You can move it out. Maybe you don't stand it up, but you move it out on the arm instead. You can also, if you have that new tower, the thing that the new tower does is you can move the front link out. And what that does is it makes the front end stiffer, resisting roll. So if you move the link out on the tower, maybe you'd find that on corner entry, the front stays flatter and the rear doesn't lift up as much. So that is an option too. And then you can also try a softer roll bar. Maybe you try the softer, after this you try the softer roll bar. Oh, it's too soft. Maybe you lift the shock back up. Maybe it's good. Maybe a softer roll bar, but more upright rear shock is better than a more laid down shock and a harder roll bar. Those are the things I would mainly try.
You just said, Darren and JQ, I had this exact same problem last weekend on our local track, which has got a really fast sweeper after the straight. It's also off camber. My rear was lifting, just dropping the rear arms by 0.5 mil. Night and day difference.
Yes,
Got rid
this
of
is
that
a very,
straight away.
very sensitive change. Just 0.5 mil, which is a tiny difference. You wouldn't think it makes such a big difference. On the track, it is massive.
Yeah, I was amazed.
Lower this arm is, the more likely the car is to stay low.
Yeah. And I could go from having to brake into that corner to just carrying speed all the way through. It was so different. I'd give that a try, Darren.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Does that work? No, it's quite small, but yeah, you can see the you can see that image, can you, in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what DJ's talking about is this fast sweeper here through that first corner, because you're traveling so fast into it. It's just it kind of bites and then lets go, and then bites and lets go. It's really hard to be really consistent throughout that whole entire camber. So it is cambered all the way around that corner to that first little roller. It's not really a jump, it's a roller. So yeah, it's quite hard to be consistent all the way through here. And now it's very, very high bite. It's like plasticine when you get the right amount of moisture in it. So
yeah. Well, I think those things that I spoke about will help. The rear arm 1 step lower, the links long and up on the towers, and then making sure that your suspension is hard enough. So your damping is thick enough so that the car doesn't roll too much too quickly. So all those transitions happen slower. Thick diffs, thick shock oil, the lower rear arm, wide C&D blocks, long links, high on the towers. That's the way to go.
10.7.5 probably didn't help either, Tim.
I was running it in.
Yeah, but definitely, yeah, diffs make a big difference in that kind of section too.
Yeah, I've gone to 30, 50, 30, which yeah, we played out a while ago. We've been running that for a while. We ran 50, 150 last year at the States.
Yep. I think that's all I have for you now. I'll post about the build section and all the videos we had there and all that information, and also the other updates that I add to Wiki now over the next days. And we'll set up the VRC racing, so you'll all have the same car, same track, same setups. We'll think of some good weekly competitions and prizes to encourage the youth to actually play the game and race. Pekko said he can organize some live racing for those people who want to do that. More fun to race against someone than alone. Then the next time, I think this was so much to cover that the next time we'll go over the setup homework and the things that you can do at the track other than practicing now to do 5-minute consistent runs. sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Was there any
Okay.
truggy news, just out of curiosity?
Oh yeah, there was two things, right? Truggy news and something else came up earlier. I forgot what it was we were supposed to talk about, but the truggy is almost here. We have 10 sets of everything, so including gears and hubs, and we need to get those to the people who are now actively going to run trucks. So people going to Silver State and the drivers who were involved in the first run. We just had a chassis, nothing else, and there were members who built trucks, so they need the first ones for sure. And then we have enough for everyone of all the other parts. So chassis, electric or nitro, turnbuckles, drive shafts, wide C&D block for the rear, long out drives. What else is different on the truck? Shock towers. Yeah, shock towers. You need to borrow a fuel tank, body posts, body, and people have been running X-ray arms, I believe. So we have enough of all those parts for everyone at once, but you're going to have to wait for the diff internal gears and our steering knuckle and rear hub. So we only have 10 sets of everything, which includes the gears and the hubs, but enough for everyone of all the other parts. And then you wait for the gears and hubs. People have been running, I believe, S-Works gears. Is that right? Does someone know here? We have the list on Wiki, I think, but S-Works gears and with Mayako diff and everything, and then they've been running HB drive shafts in the Mayako buggy hubs, stuff like that. But what we are doing is we're making our own drive shafts with long axles, so we can use buggy hexes, and then we make longer steering knuckles and wider rear hubs. I think that's going to be a much better solution than what they run on the current truggies, where they share the hubs from buggy to truggy, and then they run wide hexes. I don't like that idea, so we'll share the hexes instead and have different hubs.
Does the S-Works, running the S-Works gear, do you have to run the pin for the gear as well, as long as the internal gears, or can you use the Mayako pin?
I believe that the only part
gears?
that's S-Works is the ring and pinion.
Okay. And then the internal, but internal gears are Mayako.
Yeah, Mayako, yeah.
Okay, cool. And the question I bet is burning a hole in Timmy's head. Can you run traditional truggy body?
Yeah, you can. Of course.
Fantastic.
So you can, mount the body mounts on the front tower and run a normal, like old school truck body.
What truck should be.
Don't go picking on the old man.
I honestly don't know which bodies people run.
There's information on a Discord in the truggy development section. They have the bruggy bodies that work and the traditional body, as well as I think a spreadsheet of parts borrowed from other brands. So if we just make sure that's complete, then that should be a good source of information.
Yeah. So the truggies should be ready to ship by the end of the month. So end of next week, Monday of the following week. And then anyone going to Silver State would have it in time.
Is that for just the 10 kits you have ready, or is that for all the parts as well?
For everyone, but we only will have 10 sets of gears and hubs.
Yep, cool.
Yeah. What was the other thing? I remember at some point I mentioned it, and I was like, we're going to talk about that. Or was it the truggy? I don't know.
I think it was in the list of stuff from on the invisible speed. screen we were looking at. I think it might have been in there.
And JQ, the setup station is really close then?
Well, they've actually told me 2 weeks, so that's good. And they said they would send me an invoice this week, so I think so. I believe it's actually close now.
Because I'd like to get
That will
mine
be
before
nice.
the Philippines. That would be good.
Yeah, really pushing for that.
And I'd like
Because
to
I
use
also
his
want
at the
to.
Philippines.
Yes, I also want to have them there because there'll be a lot of people there who could potentially want a set. So there's still a month to go. I believe we'll have them.
Just on the Philippines, while you're looking at that, has there been any discussion on pit spaces or whether we're all pitting together or it's going to be scattered?
We want to all pit together. Probably there where you, Darren, pitted. So when you get to the track and you turn left, that area there.
Yeah, we would take up about three or four rows of that, I would imagine.
Yeah, but would you agree that's the best place to be?
Oh, definitely. After being there the last 2 years, that's definitely the best place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
so
I think Tim Wainwright said that when he counted all up, there was about I think it was 26 Mayako drivers going to be at the Philippines. So over 10% of the entries.
I know of 27. Sure. So it should be 27.
Oh, are you racing Nitro Buggy or just E-Buggy?
E-Buggy, I have to pit. Damn.
Ah.
I wish they had another class I could race, but no.
40 plus.
You're assuming that you would have been in the top heat.
At that
Come
race,
on now.
I would be.
It's pretty common that knowledge that he would have been. I think you've been in every top heat at ABC so far.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm upset there's no 40 plus. That's bold.
Yeah, exactly. If there was, I could race. But
there's a one-off race for it's probably 45 plus. There's a one-off race
that
each
doesn't
year,
help me, DJ.
and it goes on to qualify. So
yeah. But
it's like how the
E-Buggy
Nationals
I'll
run
run.
the Sportsman.
DJ, I've turned 40. It's like life starts again, and all of a sudden they move the goalposts. It's not fair.
I think they should have a 50 plus.
You'd be the only person out there, though.
No, CEO is 50 for sure, right?
No, there's plenty of people that are over 50 there.
It'd just be you and Mark Lawler.
It'd still whoop us, Tyrone.
Yeah, well, that
Ben
reality.
Page.
Okay. So
on the Philippines too, I'll have a set of soda shocks for you to have a look at.
Okay.
I'm talking to Matty about trying to express the ones that the guys have pre-ordered for Miyako to us to get to the Philippines, but it'll be pretty tight.
Okay.
So it'll be worth a look.
Yeah. The only thing I see here in the notes that I didn't mention was now when you do go to the track and you do 5-minute runs, how to time it. Well, it's easy if it's a team effort, father-son. That's easy. But if you are alone, you can still do it. So I always use my radio to take my lap times. On the Sunway, there's a button under your thumb that you can set as your timer. And then I just press it with my thumb, and I don't need to move my thumb or anything. It's right there. I just click off each lap, and I do it on the front straight. Normally when I pass myself, it needs to be an easy section, a fast section where it's basically your reaction time as you pass yourself or something on the track. So try to find a section like that. Use your radio to time your runs if you are alone. Also, there's lap monitor, has a lap timing system. Racebox also has a timing system, or maybe your track has practice mode and You can check your laps on Speed Hive. So there's no excuse. You can, every time you go to the track, you can time yourself and time 5-minute runs.
The Fly Skies have a similar mode, but it goes based off your trigger input.
I think
and they also have a button.
Sunwa comes standard like that, but you can change it, so it's not off the trigger. It starts when you press the button. Yep. Okay. It's been emotional. That's it for now.
Thank you.
Have to go to water.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
by the way,
Thank you.
especially
Cheers,
to all our
JQ.
youth, what would be good motivating prizes that we could have for our VRC racing? And also, I think we need to have some kind of goals for real life, going to the track, completing tasks. What would prizes be that would motivate you to do that, to actually try harder and finish clean 5-minute runs and all of that? What could Mayako or Invisible Speed offer up as a carrot? We need ideas. You can write in Discord. You don't have to answer now.
I can answer this. I'm like old and bald and not very fast, but everyone loves a good sticker.
Sticker. Okay, so
Everyone
achievement
loves-
stickers.
Everyone loves a good sticker to put on their buggy.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea because
Oh no, keep going.
yeah,
I have to
when I
say,
was in
Timmy, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
I thought he would say Talon.
I still have a sticker drawer full of all my motocross stickers that are just very pride of possession.
Okay, stickers. And unique ones you can only get when you achieve something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember when I spent more time in America at OCRC, every club race there was this big American dude who was Mr. America, Captain America, right? He was an American stereotype. We had beef, kind of not serious, but still. And every time I beat him, I would put this American flag sticker on my car. So I understand the concept. It's good. It's fun. I think it will work.
Even for something like a little bit different, like I don't know if there's Invisible Speed or Youth Mentor Program pit mats coming out, then you could do like you get a discount or you get a free one of them if you've had the quick lap for 3 months or you've been consecutive for 6 months or something, doing something, you could offer a bigger prize like that potentially.
The only thing with that is the kids don't pay for it anyway, so they don't care about discounts.
Right. Yes. It doesn't motivate the kids.
I think I'm the only youth that pays for everything.
Yeah, right.
It's almost like a scout badge. So you get a pit mat and you've got all the little cutouts of where the sticker's got to go when you achieve it.
Yeah. Or a sticker
that might take you a while, Tyrone.
On the side of your wing, stickers, yeah, like scout badges. You collect them. Somebody can see straight away you've got 3 badges.
So if you've got the most stickers, you're the winner.
Yeah.
What about something like a signed body or something, for like a memorabilia piece that kids can go, yeah, I got this from JQ and Pecco or stuff like that?
Yeah, for
memorabilia is always cool. Yeah,
that's good.
Something you can hang up and look at all the time, like this, similar to the stickers.
Yeah, like Thibaut's car, which is missing. Damn, behind me.
I was going to say, you're missing a car behind you.
Yeah.
Zip, no comment.
Which way? See, Robert's car is right there.
I will say, I think Robert's body is. I liked the retro throwback for the Worlds. It was very.
Nice. Very good.
Get
Maybe
Alex
the loser
Yap onto
gets
those
the
stickers, JQ.
What?
Because he's not busy enough already.
I'm sorry. What?
Get Alex Yap onto the stickers.
Yes. Yeah, there was 2 people talking. couldn't make it out. Yes, I will. That will be one of our next projects.
That's the other one. It's not probably youth mentor program, but I did post it on the pictures the other day, and a few boys commented. Was Alex Yap diff shock piston setup sticker that goes on the radio box?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a very good idea for Miyako.
Yes, it was good.
Because it is handy. It's. I've got too many cars to remember what's in what, so makes it very easy for me.
Yeah, I need the same thing, definitely. Especially now because I'm wrenching on like 3 different people's cars, so it gets a bit hectic.
You know, that's my claim to fame. That I asked Alex to make those for me, and he's now making them for everybody. So
okay, good job. So we need to make it more official and really get them done.
Oh, DJ, did you ask him to make them around the wrong way?
No, that's all his own doing.
Okay.
That was good.
Those are good ideas. We can continue in the Discord about that.
Yeah.
And
I could just quickly on the chat we had tonight. I thought phenomenal information that we got going through the setup sheet. I picked up so many ideas. I don't know if that's something you could do for the wiki, if you were to do something for everyone, just explaining what all the different options were and what they meant and what they did was, yeah, I've picked up half a dozen ideas just tonight. So yeah, thank you very much for that. It was good.
yes, that is the kind of information that we're gonna keep adding and trying to condense it and simplify it so that people can find what they need. Because there's so much information, but kind of hard to find sometimes. So, yes.
Awesome.
Glad that it
Thanks,
helped.
guys.
Definitely a
Great.
very, although long, definitely I'd rather it be this length and as informative as it was than short. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, this was kind of 2 meetings in one. And we have another one in, wait, 5 hours. Okay.
Okay.
Us Aussies like to do it properly, brother.
That's nice. It's going to be hard for the second meeting now to beat this one. Well, let's see. We'll try.
They won't be as good looking.
It's possible, but you don't have a camera on though.
Pretty much like DJ but younger.
He's too good looking for the camera. I think that's what the problem is.
We'll keep it that way, okay? No camera. I'm scared now. Okay, I need to get to work. I have a lot of stuff to do. So.
Too easy. Thank you, JQ.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next
See
time.
ya.
Take care.
We'll decide later when next time is, but after Philippines, I would say.